North Korea is enhancing ties with Russia, sending 15,000 troops on 2 occasions. So Shoigu, the man who is the Secretary of National Security, has made his appearance again, hasn't he?
They said 6,000 more, right?
Today, we officially recognize the first anniversary of the restoration of their strategic alliance. If they decide to send engineers again, it shows how tight the North Korea-Russia relationship is becoming. Even though China doesn't view this relationship favorably, they can't just abandon North Korea either. This troubling convergence involving North Korea, China, and Russia is posing significant challenges not only to the US but also importantly to us as well.
So what's the next step after Iran's nuclear facilities are addressed? Everyone is focusing on Kim Jong-un now. Once the US has dealt with Iran, isn't it likely that they will then shift their focus to North Korea? Professor, considering the current geopolitical climate, once the situation with Iran is fully resolved, do you believe that the United States will genuinely begin to investigate and actively engage with the nuclear issues that North Korea presents?
Yes, even though a letter was sent regarding negotiations, North Korea has completely chosen to ignore any attempt at response. The nuclear situation on the Korean peninsula is undeniably pressing, especially considering the significantly strengthened ties that have emerged between North Korea and Russia, along with the concerning deployment of a remarkable total of 15,000 troops in 2 distinct rounds. Once again, indeed, the Secretary of National Security, Shoigu, has arrived at this critical moment.
They've announced 6,000 more troops,
Today
right?
marks an important milestone, being the very first anniversary of the restoration of their strategic alliance. If they now intend to send engineers, it unmistakably signifies a notably closer relationship between North Korea and Russia. Although China views these evolving relations with considerable disfavor, it cannot entirely sever the ties it has with North Korea. Hence, the convergence of North Korea, China, and Russia generates a dynamic environment that is unfavorable, not only for the US, but also for us. So, how Israel handles this nuclear issue, especially with North Korea, could potentially lead to direct US intervention. If an attack happens, there are 2 possible outcomes. We might decide not to proceed, or we might think this is why we need to strengthen our ties with Russia and China to navigate this situation. We are currently facing a highly significant and critical period of decision-making indeed, which will undoubtedly influence global dynamics moving forward. In light of this, the North Korean situation isn't just a matter for the 2 Koreas, but of global concern. Ultimately, this complex and critical issue is deeply interlinked with essential nations like China and Russia, whose global roles cannot be overlooked. It is essential that our diplomacy aligns effectively within this interconnected framework. When it comes to the situation in Iran, we see strong support stemming from China behind the scenes. Iran's daily crude oil exports stand at about 1.8 million barrels. China purchases an impressive 90% of this entire volume. Such crude cannot reach the Western world, can it? These intricate relationships are interconnected in a complex manner. Therefore, engaging in negotiations alone doesn't get us closer to real progress. Therefore, we must thoroughly understand the complex dynamics involved when addressing North Korea's nuclear issues. This is the perspective we hold.
The issue of North Korea remains a challenging situation. The Iran issue isn't just about Iran, Israel, and whether the US gets involved. It's also tied to North Korea, which is right above us. He mentioned that it's all interconnected with North Korea, Russia, and China on a larger scale. Right now, North Korea has announced a significant statement addressing the urgent and intensifying situation in Israel and Iran. NK's foreign ministry, they stated that Israel is the cancer of Middle East peace. And they condemned the airstrike on Iran as a brutal act of aggression that tramples on the sovereignty and territorial integrity of a nation. They strongly oppose it and denounce the action. This statement clearly criticizes Israel, saying they were in the wrong. From North Korea's strategic perspective, it can certainly go 2 ways. Seeing what happened to Iran, they might think, we better be careful. Or they could choose to lean more heavily into advocating for anti-Israel and anti-US positions altogether. Isn't it more likely the latter?
Yes, indeed. That's the only way they can respond right now. Because the Western nations, especially the US, have been addressing North Korea's nuclear issue. and the North Korean nuclear issue stems from its unilateral development and provocations. They've even withdrawn from the NPT. They don't accept inspections from the IAEA, not at all. They're operating in a legal gray area and thus posing a global threat. But the truth is they're under control, stepping away from international norms and such. The most pressing issue we face today is that both Russia and China are quietly but firmly, tacitly supporting them. Without that support, it would be very difficult for them to make such statements. With that robust alliance backing them, they believe they have no choice but to forge ahead. Claiming development of nuclear weapons is an essential right designed to ensure the protection and safety of their nation. What they are really saying is, don't criticize us for that. Overall, in a broader sense, such remarks distinctly reflect their urgent and desperate need to start direct talks with the United States, particularly considering that there appears to be no alternative means to effectively resolve these pressing global issues. The conflict between Israel and Iran cannot be resolved by leaving them to handle it alone. Ideally, the U.S. should step in to mediate. I think they're trying to create a situation where the Korean Peninsula's nuclear issues, especially North Korea's, are swept under the rug while forming an alliance with North Korea, China, and Russia to stand against the U.S. with their backing.
Right now, North Korea has no choice but to rely on the backing of China and Russia. And as we assess the increasingly complex situation in Iran, it inevitably leaves us feeling quite uneasy for all the same alarming reasons.